Hi, my name is Cameron, and this is a short, quick video about a day trip I took to Kinzua State Park, where I took some large format infrared trichrome images, as well as some other color negative film. The Kinzua State Park actually was a railroad, very, very large bridge. I believe it's in the around 300 feet tall. When you're at the base of it, you really can't really get a sense of scale until you're there in person, sort of staring up from the bottom. It is a massive structure, and it fell apart during a tornado in the early 2000s. This first image I captured from one of the side overlook structures really shows the decay and sort of the chaos that happened following that tornado. This was shot on Kodak T-Max 400, I believe around f/22, and my focal length was 135 millimeters, so you're looking at around 35 mil on full frame equivalent. So after that first image, I moved over to the outlook deck and started to frame up some of my other compositions. I shot some 4x5 here, and I shot some 120. There were a lot of people vacationing here, so there were children and young adults who were interested in sort of what I was doing. Met some people who were camera enthusiasts along the way, but no other film photographers were there. When I was there, obviously I was checking and setting all of my exposure manually. I recently got my Intrepid camera this year, and actually recently got a light meter. I acquired the light meter after this trip, so I'm checking all the exposures on my phone like a true film professional, I know. I took some images here on infrared film and also on Aerochrome purple, just because I think the alien sort of viewpoint of the purple would look really, really great. And after taking these images, I had to load up film because I did not come prepared for this trip, so I set up and loaded up some T-Max 400 and also Portra 400 and 4x5. Obviously Portra 400 and 4x5 is how do I say this, quite cost prohibitive, particularly whenever you develop and scan these yourself. Here's the infrared image I was referring to previously. So this is shot on Rollei infrared 400 4x5 sheet film on my Intrepid. Again, focal length 135 millimeters. This was really cool to sort of shoot. One of the things I struggled with and learned on this trip was infrared actually focuses differently than color negative or regular film that you would focus in the visual spectrum. So I shot this at a very, very high f-stop number, so it really wasn't an issue here. But when you focus on, I guess, closer subjects in your field of view, it can really throw issues in play whenever it comes to keeping things in focus. Now, what I have up now is a 6x17 DAYI film back, so it's for 120 film that adapts into any Graflok back for a 4x5 camera, so Intrepid is included there. I've also pre-ordered the Loma Graflok back, haven't got that yet, but I have loaded up in here Aerochrome purple and 120. Initially, a lot of these shots ended up being butchered because my initial thought was to shoot, it gives you the option to shoot 6x12, 6x14, 6x17 by adding little masks on the side to lower the length of the horizontal of the image. Unfortunately, those tabs fell out, so I had a lot of really bad images that were improperly exposed or askew. As you can see, the left and right of this image are almost different colors, and that's because my lab needs to actually scan them. They're so wide they need to be scanned as two 6x12s and then put back together, and due to the issues with the masking, I kind of had a rough time with that. That being said, still I don't mind the image, and I really like the width and form factor. So after starting at the overlook deck, I moved over to the main overlook post, I guess, from the end of the railroad tracks. This sort of has a really unique look to it because you get to look directly down on all the damage that was done. Here again we have Rollei infrared on the left with an R72 filter, and then Portra 400, the classic, on the right. I'm really happy with the results from both images. These were taken on a tripod, same spot, same position, same exposure, but completely unique looks. So I really like the flexibility, and this highlights how your film choice can kind of dictate the look and feel and mood of your final image. So after taking these two large format shots, again, I lined things up and worked to set up my camera and to take more images on my 120 back. There's a lot of cool stuff to do actually at this park. So there's a little museum located inside. I took a few phone clips, but there wasn't really a lot to look at. And you also have the option to walk around and explore the lower areas of the park as well. And I do apologize for the video. I was taking this on my Sony A7 II and attempted to shoot it in a log profile, but I'm still working out the exposures there because obviously my highlights are a little bit blown out here. So after taking those images, the one that's going to show up here to the left, so I have that 120 film back lined up. So you line everything up with a mask, and then you take the image. You swap out the film back and take the image. This, I am actually not disappointed with the result. It's pretty, I would say, extraterrestrial, foreign. It gave a little bit of haze because it was a little bit wet. The conditions in Pennsylvania change all the time, so it was sunny, it was sort of foggy. It was hot, it was cold, it was everything under the sun. So this, I really like the simplicity of it all. Again, the development and exposures weren't perfect because that mask got loose and fell out, but the awesome people at my lab kind of helped me debug and figure out those scanning issues. So I did get 2 usable images, although I should have had 8 had I not messed that up. And then I moved underneath the bridge. This obviously is a really great symmetrical shot to check out like what's actually going on. The sheer amount of like metal and iron that went into this is pretty awesome. Obviously there's graffiti on the first, I would say, 2 or 3 rungs out, and even some 4, 5, or 6 rungs out in the distance. So there have been some daredevils in the past that have gone where no one has dared to explore before. I prefer to keep my feet safely on the ground. Again, I'm shooting this with T-Max 400. The first few shots were T-Max 400 with a red filter. This is T-Max 400 with no filter. The upcoming shot is probably the simplest one. Obviously, I couldn't line up my film back correctly and tried to load it upside down, which you're seeing now in the time lapse. And processing these images, I'm very happy with this one. I might actually print it in the future. The symmetries or lines and geometry all coalesce to really give a strong image. And then if you stare down the middle, which is a little bit difficult on this form factor, being that this is a video, but in the full res scan you can see the disconnected bridge through the sort of keyhole at the end of the focal point of the picture. So you get the story of the bridge being this strong, powerful thing, and also fallen down and broken and separated at the sides, which I think is pretty cool. And after that, it started to drizzle, and I had to make the long haul down. I was filming totally independently. I had initially planned to make the trip with a few friends, but availability sort of crisscrossed and didn't work out. So made the day trip myself, which was about 3 hours up and 3 hours back. The trail isn't too bad if you're in decent shape and interactive, but if you don't get out a lot, I would recommend bringing hiking boots and being well hydrated and wearing comfortable shoes and socks, because it is quite the ascent and descent, but obviously going back up the hill was a lot worse. So after crossing this bridge, I started to line things up. As you can see, the rain is coming down, and I wanted to figure out my final composition with where I was going to do the Rollei infrared trichrome. The trichrome concept I had seen done by, I believe, 2 different channels, Jamie Maldonado and The Attic Darkroom on Instagram, YouTube, and Twitter. I think pretty much everywhere. And I think the concept was really cool because it was a cheaper way to sort of step into that Kodak Aerochrome infrared look without having to shell out like $500 for a cold stored roll. And this was a lot more relaxing and sort of ticked all the creative boxes for me. So in framing this up, obviously I had to set all of the exposures manually, compensate for all the different filter factors. I believe the blue was an 80A, the red was a 25A, and the green was a 58. And then the R72 filter, which you can see kind of spliced on right now, was layered on top of my lens itself and the Intrepid. Obviously I'm a tripod because the shots need to be perfectly identical in order to overlay them over time. I also have just really grown fond of the Tiffin Glimmerglass diffusion filter, so that's screwed on the front of all these shots as well. To me, it softens and really gives a nice look, in particularly where we're going to stack these images. It can look a little bit strange if you have sharp layers of a red, green, and blue element that aren't aligned. So I took all 3 shots. It took me a while. There were people towards the bottom that wouldn't get out of the way. That being said, here's my final image. Very happy with the result. I was surprised. It's sort of a beautiful thing to see come together whenever you do all the development yourself. I developed these all myself and then scanned them, sent them off to a local lab to be professionally scanned. I did have some errors in development and some issues. The IR film is extremely thin, so at the sheet film size, I could really only develop 2 sheets at a time, even though my carrier holds 6, because it would literally float out, and there was no way for me to agitate the film without it floating out and touching the film next to it, and obviously it's going to disrupt the chemicals over time. So that made things a little bit more complicated, but I followed the steps according to all the videos I mentioned previously. I'll link those down in the description as well. There are some elements that are still imperfect. Obviously, they're associated with the trichrome process itself, but again, really cool image. Gives you an otherworldly feel for something as mundane as sort of trees and iron. If you think this is cool, let me know. If you tried it yourself and need troubleshooting help, feel free, reach out, comment on this video below, and I'll link all my social media information as well. Thanks.